My name is Steve Conroy. I work as a stunt man, and I'm also own a corporation, CSM Stunts and Productions. My typical day-to-day duties really depends on if I'm filming or not filming at the time on a project. Let's say I'm filming on an actual movie set. Typically what I would do is you get a call time, you check in with the production, check in with the stunt coordinator, and we might be doing anything from shooting previs, which is a lot of rehearsal stuff, getting stuff on camera, to basically show a visualization of the action to a director or group of production people. We might actually be filming that action. We might be rigging something to shoot later on. There's really no typical day when you're actually filming. On a day like today, for instance, I'm not actively working on a project. I might wake up, go to the gym, check some gear, train with some mitts, train with some falls, things of that nature. So it's never really the same thing. It's always something different usually. One of my more recent projects that I was working on, what we were typically doing, it's a TV show. I think it's on the CW. I've never seen it, but it's called Valor, and it's about military special operations. The basically kind of goes off the 160th Special Operations Task Force Air Wing. So I was working on that TV show. I'm former military, so I was one of the guys that they brought in to do stunts and help train the actors on it. On that show, primarily what we were doing is training actors like, hey, this is how you'd clear a room. This is how you'd hold a weapon. This is how you would approach this situation. If you get shot at, you'd take cover here. So it's really just a lot of hands-on working with actors. But then there were certain days where we had some shootout stuff to do. So there might be an explosion going off next to us. We also had to do some fast roping on the show where a helicopter would come in. We throw ropes outside, and then with night vision goggles or thermals and all our gear, we'd be fast roping down to get certain shots to set up the overall scene for the show. And really I was a glorified actor at that point. Even though I was a stuntman, I was working primarily as just kind of set dressing more than anything. I had a look, I had my wardrobe on, and I looked the part, and they just had me hanging out with the actors mostly. But every now and then we'd have to do some stunts as well. Some of the stress that goes along with being a stuntman is more than anything, we're independent contractors. So you don't know when your next job is going to happen. I'm just sitting around right now waiting for the phone to ring. It will ring, but the anxiety of not knowing when it's going to ring is always a little stressful and unnerving. Also, there's the actual stress of the job, where we might be, let's say we're doing a fall scene. In Hunger Games Mockingjay, there's a scene where we go and rescue PETA from the Capitol, and we come in with a hovercraft and then drop through a ceiling. And in order to shoot that scene, we were actually on a tiny piece of line called tech line that connects to a harness that we wear underneath our wardrobe. And we were dropped 500 feet from the Marriott Marquis in downtown Atlanta, through basically from the skylight all the way down to the floor. 500 feet doesn't sound like much until you're actually up there looking down. Is definitely enough for you to go splat if something goes wrong. And just not really a lot of stress from that, because we do work with some of the best and most talented people in the business, but there's always that what if something goes wrong. If you fall from that height, there's really nothing you or anybody can do for you. So that's always a little unnerving at times, because you're literally putting your life in somebody else's hands, or you get set on fire. You know, hey, can these guys get to me and put me out before I get burned? You might do a skydiving scene or a base jumping scene in a movie, and there's always that just in the back of your head, what if? Because a lot of what we do is just calculated risk. We can't necessarily replicate the scenario, the situations, all the variables. So there's always that, I'm doing this for the first time, and it may not go according to the calculations in my head. So the working hours, usually when you work on a film set, it's pretty long hours. Sometimes you get lucky, you show up for an hour or two, but you have to factor in hair and makeup, wardrobe, changing in and out, practicing a scene. Typically, any day I get a call to go to work, I'm expecting to be there at least 12 hours. My longest day ever, I think, was 18 hours, and my shortest day was 15 minutes. But I usually plan, if I'm going to work, I'm going to be there 12 hours. Some of the educational requirements for being a stuntman, there's really nothing specific per se from a traditional academic standpoint. I do have a degree. I've never used it really in stunts. I'd say more than anything, the education that you want is just a little bit of everything. It's being a jack of all trades. Anything from gymnastics to climbing, rigging, BMX, motorcycle. I mean, really any skill, acting, any skill you have makes you valuable in some way, shape, or form. In the film industry, stunts specifically, it's usually not tied to any traditional academic study. Some of the other skills, like for instance me, I came from a military background, so I'm a professional skydiver, I'm a pilot. I have a lot of different skills. I was an EMT, worked ocean rescue, beach lifeguarding for years. I just had a lot of things that I did that made me an asset to a film crew, especially a stunt crew. A lot of people in the business didn't start off like me. I know a lot of girls, for instance, that were gymnasts, and they were really good gymnasts, and that's what got them into the business. And more than anything with the gymnasts, they had to learn to ugly up their stuff because they're used to being all, proper and rules for gymnastics. And now they've got to look like it's wild and crazy. They take a bullet, they take a punch, they've got to learn how to ugly everything up. Climbers, a lot of climbers get into stunts as well, and those are usually your guys that are rigging all the wire work because they know so much about ropes and loads and pulleys and the mechanics and the physics behind performing a lot of these skills. Drivers, gosh, I mean, really, there's something for everybody in the film industry and in stunts as a whole. I would say the biggest thing to know is know everything. Be comfortable in your own skin. Learn to laugh at yourself. There's so many times I've been on a film set and you're in the ugliest wardrobe or you're doing something totally opposite and you've got everybody looking at you and they're like, oh, be goofy, do this, do that. Really just learning how to brush it off, laugh at yourself and not take it too seriously. At the end of the day, you're just making a movie. That's what helped me more than anything. It's just brush it off. I'd say the best part about the job is when you were a kid, you probably played cowboys and Indians or cops and robbers or, whatever fantasy you played when you were a kid. I get paid to pretend. I get paid to go, be a cowboy for a day or be a cop or be a bad guy or play a zombie. So I'd say that's probably the best thing about the job. And then seeing something come together that entertains millions of people. I'd say that's probably the most rewarding part of it. Some of the negatives about the work is it's unpredictable. You don't know when the phone's going to ring. I've been getting in bed at 11 o'clock at night and the phone will ring and be like, hey, can you be here at 5 a.m.? Now, that doesn't typically happen, but it does happen. You're away from home a lot. You work really long hours. It's just some of the scenes you're filming. It's not always the right season. For instance, you might be filming a summer scene for a movie, but you might be shooting it in the dead of winter. So you might be in short sleeves and t-shirts and sandals, but it might be 30 degrees outside. So you don't really, they don't wait on you. They don't care about your comfort. Rain scenes in the winter time, just more than anything, really long hours, being away from family, short turnarounds from when you got to be back at work, and just the unpredictability are more than anything the negatives for the job itself. I'd say final words of advice if you were to be like, hey, how do I get into this business? Understand what the business is. Just start off by Googling the Screen Actors Guild. What is the Screen Actors Guild? That's the union that we work and encompasses us as performers, actors, and stunt people. Just always learn something new. Always be willing to take constructive criticism, or when somebody's like, hey, that sucked, don't take it personally and learn from it, do better. Every little skill you can possibly learn. Learning about photography, learning about camera angles and how things are shot. When somebody says, hey, I'm using this millimeter camera, you understand, you can already picture in your head, well, if he's on an 80 millimeter, that's probably going to look like this. So just really, you can't learn too much. You can never be too qualified for this job. Train really hard, keep yourself in shape, stretch. Sometimes, you want to bend and not break, preferably, and really listen to your body and take care of yourself. Be ready for anything any physicality that might be tossed your way, and really just kind of have a positive attitude and just be prepared to do what's asked of you.